Palisades on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River and on ships in the harbor. So we'll see the ships from many places. Now, let's take you from one end of the harbor to the other. First to John Martin on the German bark Gorschfock.
Harry, we're on the bridge of the Gorschfock. This is the command area and the wheel area. These men are called rudder gangers, literally the people who make the rudder go. We're proceeding under power right now. We're within about 1.5 miles of the bridge, outside New York Harbor still. The captain tells me he's hoping for southwesterly winds so he can unfurl his sails when we salute the review ship. And if that happens, we should be able to see back into history because 100 men will climb the masts to loosen all 23 sails. They'll be controlled from the deck below by 200 lines. The crew has scrubbed the decks and coiled its lines and put on its white uniforms, and we're ready to start this celebration. This is John Martin on the Gorschfock approaching New York Harbor.
Back to it. The Denmark does have the position of honor among the foreign ships in the operation sail and the only U.S. ship. Immediately behind the Eagle.
Here's the view from New York Harbor as America celebrates the Bicentennial from sea to shining sea. Behind me, the aircraft carrier, the Forrestal. It's huge, more than 1,000 feet in length. It looks more like a floating dock from where we are than a seagoing vessel. Surrounding the Forrestal, like a school of pilot fish, are a number of Coast Guard patrol boats trying to keep this area clear. And as you can see, they have their work cut out for them because pleasure boats are filling the harbor. The volume of traffic has turned the seas choppy as each of these boats jockeys for a front row berth to watch the parade of tall ships. Up the Hudson, as far as I can see, are the gray ships, warships from 22 countries lying at anchor against the murky, hazy skyline of New York City. Everyone here is waiting to watch the silent, graceful procession of tall ships. Bettina Gregory aboard the Four Bells in New York Harbor.
Harry, those tall ships are still something that remains to be seen from down here at the lower end of Manhattan, but Lord knows the people have been here long enough waiting to see it. Several thousand people gathered here at dawn, but it has been something of a surprise in two ways. First of all, the crowds are not as big as everyone expected. Those projections of 5 to 10 million people in Manhattan to watch this tremendous parade today must have scared an awful lot of folks off. And secondly, at least at this stage of the day, it is an orderly crowd. One would hardly know from looking at these well-mannered people who've been extremely polite to one another that this is Lower Manhattan.
The scene you're looking at now is the lower bay of New York Harbor. That's the Verrazano Bridge over in the haze over the Narrows. That's the longest suspension span in the world, if we could see it. Beyond the bridge, if we could see them, are some of the ships of Operation Sail, about ready to move into the harbor and up the Hudson River. Our camera now is on the World Trade Centers near the southern tip of Manhattan. On up the Hudson, which is called the North River by those who know New York City as a port city, is the George Washington Bridge. There was a time that was the longest suspension span in the world. The same man designed it as designed the Verrazano. The sailing ships will move from one bridge to the other, 20 miles. Presently, we should be able to see the USS Wainwright, a missile cruiser of the Navy. That's the review ship of the International Naval Review. We're seeing this from a camera on a tall apartment building on the New Jersey Palisades. And right now, down there on the Wainwright, Bill Matney reporting.
Here on the Wainwright, anchored at the George Washington Bridge, everything is all set for the beginning of the International Naval Review and Operation Sail involving the tall ships. Vice President Rockefeller, Secretary of State Kissinger, and Defense Secretary Rumsfeld will arrive here by helicopter shortly before 1 and immediately go to a special viewing area, colorfully carpeted and providing an excellent vantage point from which to conduct the official review of all the ships. This guided missile cruiser then will move down the Hudson past the tall ships sailing north and past the warships from 21 other nations, receiving gun salutes along the way. It will join the giant carrier Forrestal off Staten Island, where President Ford will arrive. Crowds already have formed along both shorelines for this, the largest gathering of ships in history. Bill Mapney aboard the Wainwright on the Hudson.
At this hour of the morning 200 years ago, Thomas Jefferson sat in a corner of the State House in Philadelphia with a portable desk in his lap and a quill pen in his hand, while delegates to the Second Continental Congress made changes in the Declaration of Independence. Like any writer, Jefferson may have fumed inwardly at every addition and deletion. A total of 86 changes were made. 480 words fell by the wayside, leaving 1,337 immortal words. In his diary, Jefferson wrote that if the debate had occurred in a cool winter month, Congress might still be debating. As it was, the day was hot and muggy. The State House was located near a stable, whence the hungry flies swarmed thick and fierce, alighting on the legs of the delegates and biting hard through their thick silk stockings. Treason was preferable to discomfort. The common fly has a place besides the American eagle, and flies celebrate the 4th at every picnic. That old State House is now called Independence Hall. Jim Walker is there.
Harry, as you were saying, there were many flies inside Independence Hall. It was a very hot day here. There were no screens 200 years ago. Governor Milton Schaap of Pennsylvania is now speaking, giving his remarks. Miss Marian Anderson, formerly the Metropolitan Opera, will, in a few minutes, read excerpts from the Declaration of Independence. This program here is running about 20 minutes late because the president was delayed getting to Valley Forge. Ann Compton, who was traveling with the president, is with me. Ann, what happened out of Valley Forge?
We had weather problems. I guess even the Bicentennial is likely to be in for some bad luck. President Ford had to circle in his helicopter. All of us had to circle in about 4 helicopters that came in, and it delayed us 20 minutes there, and helicopters can't pick up speed the way Air Force One can going on to the next city. But the White House likes to keep these things running as close to time as possible.
What did the president do out in Valley Forge?
The president has tried to spread this whole day across a whole spectrum of appearances, and it was a real theme of patriotism and self-sacrifice and pioneers coming along and viewing the Conestoga wagon.
Yeah, I was out there last night for the fireworks, and I guess the president looked at he couldn't miss them.
He climbed on board the Michigan wagon that, of course, from his home state, and signed a postcard for a kid, and he was just generally a tourist. That's what he seems to be doing best today.
Were the people there who drove the Michigan wagon, were they there when the president climbed on board? There's not much room in those wagons.
No, they vacated the wagon while he climbed on to pose for pictures sitting on the front running boards, and then he did sign a proclamation making it a historical site.
Thanks. Harry?
Thank you. The salute of the big guns along the Hudson has not begun yet, but one of the first big government guns has arrived. The Vice President, Nelson Rockefeller, and Mrs. Rockefeller have landed by helicopter on the deck of the USS Forrestal. They'll go up to the Wainwright from there for the review this afternoon. They're being greeted now by the commander of the Atlantic Fleet and being shown around the Forrestal before they'll be leaving there. What Vice President Rockefeller is going to do is to look at the very beginning of Operation Sail and the Naval Review from the Forrestal before he goes to the Wainwright. President Ford then will be on the Forrestal later for his part of the review. The Navy has told us that never in their history have they had exactly the kind of problems that they're having with today's events. They've never had to deal with so many important people and so many important ships from so many countries all on one day. And all navies are very conscious of protocol, including the U.S. Navy, and they want to be sure that they give the right number of guns, 21 for the president, 19 for the vice president, differing numbers for the different ships as they go by. You get a pretty good view of the harbor now, below the bridge. It's a relatively clear day in New York. The ship in the foreground is the U.S. barkentine Eagle, actually a German ship bought by the United States as part of reparations after World War II. This is the view as the very first of the ships begin to come in for the procession, which will take a good deal of the afternoon. Yesterday, somebody said there were, maybe 5,000 private vessels out to look at the visiting ships. Today, the Coast Guard is trying to keep them in some kind of order. This is the view going right down to the Eagle as she makes her way northward. Some men up on the... I'm going to make all kinds of mistakes in sailing ship terminology today. They're up on something up there.